half early.
Woohoo!
Make note of that.
Should I keep like a running plus
No.
90 minus 20 plus?
You should not.
Most thrilling 60 seconds. And welcome everyone to the Lincolnville Select Board meeting. It is October 28th. Welcome everyone. Reminder that Selectman Late is excused this evening. And before we get going, Steve, would you care to read the quote of the evening?
Certainly. Vision is the art of seeing what is invisible to others. Jonathan Swift.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to open the podium for any non-agenda items. Seeing no one rushing up to the podium for any non-agenda items, let's move along to the administrator's report.
We've had a busy couple of weeks, as per usual. Revaluation inspections are continuing. I would anticipate probably about the next time we get together, there'll be a ramp up in the number of people we have actually working for us, going around town doing it, because they're finishing up in another community currently. On elections, for anybody that doesn't know, Tuesday, November 5th is election day. It's a week from tomorrow. The polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the gymnasium of the Lincolnville Central School. Absentee balloting or absentee ballots are available now for anybody that wishes to vote in that fashion. After Thursday, you need a special circumstance to use absentee, so we would encourage you, if you want to vote absentee, to do it between now and Thursday. Also, we've conducted, since the last meeting, we conducted our ballot clerk training for those that are coming to work with us on election day. I think that went fairly well, and we've conducted the prescribed testing on the machines successfully. We're wrapping up a number of our fall projects. Green Acre Road, Slab City, and High Street brush clearing is continuing. The floats are out at Norton Pond. Down at the pier, we have replaced the fender piles that got damaged in the January storm, and the deck has been strapped down. Before, if you recall, it was strapped down on the north side, but not any place else. Now the south side's done, and I don't know if I would say intermittently, but not every pile underneath in the center is done too, depending on how they lined up with the brick cross bracing. It's done. We're about to commence with some fall grading on some of our gravel roads. A number of them are in pretty good shape given the strangeness of the summer. It held pretty well, so we won't be coming back to those. Our fall cleanup work at the parks and the town office and fire stations will commence about as soon as the leaves stop dropping from the trees. And finally, the board's priorities workshop. We're going to conduct another one at the end of the next meeting, so we can have some of those lined up for the remainder of the fiscal year. And if there's anything that has budgetary impacts, we can get that in the queue for as we start budget preparations for the new fiscal year. With that, Oh, and you did get notice on your work, at your workstations about the Waldo County budget public hearing and final approval that came over the weekend and would have been included in your packet, except it came over the weekend and would have been included in your next packet, except the meeting happens between now and then, so paper it is.
Great.
That's all I have to report, be on the agenda.
Any questions for David on the administrator's report? Okay, moving along to upcoming meetings and announcements.
All meetings are here at the town office unless announced otherwise. Lakes and Ponds Committee meets Tuesday, October 29th, 7 p.m. Planning Board is scheduled to meet Wednesday, October 30th, 6 p.m. The Lincolnville Central School Committee meets on Monday, November 4th, 6 p.m. at the Lincolnville Central School. The presidential election and general election will be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the gymnasium of the Lincolnville Central School. A meeting that's not on the agenda is the Select Board will be meeting with the Islesboro Select Board in joint session on November 7th, 5:30 p.m. at the Islesboro Town Office. The Lincolnville Town Office will be closed on Monday, November 11th in observance of Veterans Day. Recreation Commission is scheduled to meet Tuesday, November 12th, 4 p.m. Land Use Committee is scheduled to meet Tuesday, November 12th, 4 p.m. And the Select Board meets next on Tuesday, November 12th, 6 p.m.
Excellent, thank you very much. Are there any upcoming community events anyone wishes to share?
Well, there's also another town meeting tomorrow morning, I believe. I got notice 8:30 tomorrow morning. The planning board is reviewing the site plan review ordinance.
Yes, thank you, Susan. After the agenda was published, the planning board set a meeting for tomorrow to review what they reviewed with the land use committee on the potential changes to the land use ordinance. They're gonna talk amongst themselves and see if they have any comments that they wish to forward on to the land use committee. They met in a workshop earlier this month with the land use committee to look at the changes addressing the moratorium ordinance.
Great.
Mike, you look kind of,
I am confused, yeah. Is this a public hearing that they?
no, this
Okay.
is the
So what is it again?
planning board is meeting as a planning board
Yeah,
to go over what was presented to them on, I can't remember the date, but earlier this month by the land use committee to address the moratorium. And then if they have any comments, they may forward those back to the land use committee.
got it.
This is as part of the process of,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
yep,
half thought they might have done it when they were meeting with the land use committee, but they chose to
Good.
have
Okay.
a separate meeting.
Thank you.
Yep.
super. Any other upcoming community events anyone wishes to share? Seeing none, let's move along to the meeting minutes from the 15th of October.
I move that the board approve the October 15th, 2024 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And we have here our Waldo County Sheriff and Deputy here. As we invited them, Selectman Late you'll see in your packet an email that he forwarded to us regarding his concerns. Unfortunately, he is not here tonight. But anyway, we'd love to invite you up to the podium to have a conversation.
I'll stand back. Cody's got a bunch of statistics we won't have before you, but I'll be happy to answer questions.
Fabulous. We won't put you in the hot seat.
Of course. It's important.
Thanks.
Good evening, thanks for having me. For you, if you don't know me, I'm Cody Late. I also work here in Lincoln. I work for the Sheriff's Office. What I provided the selectmen tonight is a snapshot of some data that I collected from beginning January of 2020, stemming since Friday of October 25th, 2024. In there, I break it down as to the countywide traffic stops in the first block, compared to the annual Lincolnville stops per year. Dropping down a little bit further, we compartmentalize our complaints that we receive. We have speed complaints that we field, but we also then have like motor vehicle complaints. Those can be a wide range of distracted driver, people with poor operating equipment with their vehicle, just a wide range. So you see in this snapshot, there's two different categories. One that compartmentalizes all speed complaints with a comparison of countywide to specific to the town of Lincolnville. In that 4-year snapshot, Lincolnville owns about 8% of our speed complaints around the entire county. Dropping down below that is a much bigger number of our kind of a wide umbrella of our motor vehicle complaints. And in that 4-year snapshot, Lincolnville owns about 6% of our overall motor vehicle complaints. Something that we've done since Sheriff Trundy took over is battle back up just a little bit. Prior to Sheriff Trundy taking over, we cover the county with 3 people. Oftentimes there's a supervisor and 2 deputies, and they're running calls to calls to calls, trying to fit traffic enforcement in where they can. It's not always the easiest thing to target a specific problem because you're at the mercy of potential emergencies and other investigations that come in during the tours. Under Sheriff Trundy's guidance, we have selected a traffic enforcement specialist back in August of this year. His primary duties are to try to identify the problem areas around the county and have focal time in their shift to dedicate enforcement to those issues. I think that can be reflected if you look at the top box, 2024, our traffic stop numbers have increased 2668 versus the previous years in the mid 13 to 1400 range. So we have absolutely ramped up our traffic enforcement. The visions for 2025 is to select a secondary traffic enforcement specialist. Currently, right now, they work staggered hours. They have some morning commute enforcement time as well as some evening OUI enforcement time, and we look for that to continue into 2025 because we hear the complaints. We hear the Route 1s, the main streets, the school zones, we hear that. And it's not just here in Lincolnville, it's everywhere. And our best foot forward is to try to put a person on it to really dive into it. I'd be happy to take any questions about any of the motor vehicle complaints or speed complaints around town.
Do you have well, obviously you're not gonna, never mind. I can't imagine that you're gonna say, oh yeah, we go here on these days at these times here. So forget that question.
Yeah, so one thing we do have as a hurdle is as soon as we set up a targeted enforcement somewhere, the phone starts ringing, people find out about it, headlights start flashing, and the targeted mission is usually done within half an hour or so. The only repeat areas that we really find ourselves doing are school zones because they're predictable. Every school zone has a speeding problem. It's just a matter of trying to be there and be a deterrent to slow people down and hold those that are so vitally accountable.
Are there other kinds of packages of stuff? Like, I know I was in England a while back, and at least in London, which is granted, more urban, they just have, cameras and radar, and you just get a ticket in the mail. I mean, you just get a sign, they don't have a person actually doing it. And I wondered if there was anything like that that's available to law enforcement to, put on telephone poles or something like that, and just.
Sure, so we don't currently have any of that sort of technology, but it's something that certainly could be researched.
And then I'd offer that when I was campaigning a couple of years ago, speed was something I heard probably be common than I heard anywhere around there. And that's why we ramped up our efforts around that, and that's why we're going to dedicate a couple of people specifically to doing it. I've heard that a couple of times about just put up one of the radar things. They exist. We absolutely could put them up. Quite honestly, I think it would be quite an unpopular thing to put up in rural Maine, to put up something and just get a ticket mail to you. There's a handful of people that would like it until they got their ticket mail. So, quite honestly, it's I just think it would be first time in a while, we're fully staffed, we hired a lot of newer, younger guys. So we've got our last two of them in the academy right now. That's why it's been a little slow getting traffic positions up and going. So when you look at our staffing levels, although we're full, if you look at the national average, across the country, it's typical to have one officer for about every 425 citizens. So here in Waldo County, we have one deputy sheriff for about 1,800 citizens. So we're significantly below the national average, and where the average is higher is in larger metropolitan areas, where you've got people everywhere and response times are seconds. You know, our average, I don't know what our average response time would be, but I can estimate it probably 15 to 20 minutes, because we're covering 800 square miles in usually 3 areas. So it's, our response time is lower. The area that we cover is much, much larger. We're doing far fewer officers in most places. So it's a really significant dedication of resources to be able to say, we're going to take 2 guys and put them on the mountain by traffic. We're doing it in response to the basic request that people have. So we want more attention to traffic. And one of the only other reasons we do it is, although the Maine State Police has basically pulled out of rural patrol across the state, we are one of only 2 counties that are left where they actually engage in call shifting. So it's us and Canada, really the 2 left. And those resources that we get from the state is really what allows us that flexibility to do it. If they pull out of that, we're gonna, I don't know if we'll be able to maintain it moving forward, because we'll end up having to have those. We'll adopt 2,500 calls of service a year that the state is currently covering right now, that we have to find a way to absorb. So we're fortunate that we have that culture and we have that good relationship. It frees us up to do that, but it's not always easy. And I know one of the other things that was on that topic was about contract ethics, and I think I can answer the question if you had some about that as well.
Yeah, I do have a question about contracting deputies, but first, could you expand on what it is that the traffic enforcement specialist does? I mean, I got a pretty good idea, but
Yeah,
their job description is basically what?
so they are a full-time deputy sheriff,
Yeah.
and it's something that we did a temporary duty assignment on to give them the latitude to be able to go in and focus on problematic areas. When we get the repetitive calls about Main Street in this town,
Okay.
or the OUI enforcement detail in the evening, it's up to him to primarily focus in on those efforts and really dig deep to try to find the source of the problem. The other deputies are at work in traffic too, in conjunction with responding to calls for service, but the dedicated effort of the specialist is to really dive into traffic and be a focal point.
So they're analyzing, what are the hot spots? What are the problem areas in the county for speed or for traffic control, whatnot? And are they scheduling then, for a better word, speed traps in those areas?
Yes, yeah.
Part of it would be to respond to those calls of service where somebody says, hey, everybody's racing up and down Main Street, sorry, I go down to Main Street, we go to work in detail. So it's responding to that. It's also conducting details in really high traffic, high visibility areas. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't have a desire to stack traffic tickets to the ceiling. I want voluntary compliance. I want people to just drive the speed limit and be safe. And the way to do that is, one of the best ways to do it, we have limited amount of resources, is to make those resources very, very visible. So I told the guys, I want you out on major routes. I want you out on Route 3 during morning commute. I want you out in the school zone, way you can be seen. The other thing that you can do with traffic enforcement is you can target drug enforcement work. So if we know that, because we have a drug enforcement officer that works out of our office, a couple actually, and so if they say, hey, this house has been suspected of a lot of drug activity, I can have that guy go up there, or you can have that guy go up there, and specifically work that area around that house on the car, targeted enforcement there. combination, it's also distracted driving is a problem, so they can do some of that. There's a little bit of grant money out there, that can be utilized to do some of these types of things. A little bit labor intensive to do some of that work, but we've also talked about, once we get up to 2 officers, one of them wants to tackle some of those grants, to try to fund some of that as well, to do some specialized stuff, we can do that. So there's a whole number of things that we talked about, and also creating more flexibility in the schedule, so that they could come out during the morning, do a morning commute thing, but they could also have the flexibility to flex their schedule and come out on Friday and Saturday nights, when you might be actually higher on wide. So that's part of the idea of dedicating a couple of people, is giving them the flexibility so that it's not just stopping a car in between calls and services. Something they can be very intentional.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks.
I'm curious where, like, excessively loud exhausts and squealing tires, burning rubber kind of thing falls in. Is that under motor vehicle complaints?
Correct.
Yeah, because it definitely be just Lincolnville specific. It seems like there's, I don't know if folks are getting their new licenses or getting their brand new trucks and their new licenses or what, but it seems like there's a little bit of an epidemic of that going on here locally.
The highest,
Not just local.
Well, that I've noticed.
the highest volume of the motor vehicle complaints we get is the operator that's over the yellow line, or the operator that reportedly looks like they may be impaired. Those are a great majority of the motor vehicle complaints we get. We don't get a lot of the rolling the stop signs or the somebody's peeling their tires on the back road. We haven't been getting those calls.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'd be curious, Sheriff, if you want to speak briefly to contracting
Sure.
with the department.
So,
And would you just step a little bit closer to the,
sure. So, I have a couple of documents that I can talk, reference. So, Waldo County has traditionally not done a lot of contract deputies in the traditional sense of the word, like between the sheriff's office and the municipality. Largely, our relationships up to actually right now has been with the schools, like, not the school, we got a contract with them and they have an SRO. So we have a contract around that with the school absorbs the cost for that deputy. Recently, the town of Winterport, the Winterport Hampton School District, reached out to us early this year and started some dialogue with us. Hampton wanted a SRO for their 2 schools that they have in Winterport. They have a officer from the Hampton Police Department at Complex, but they wanted somebody specific for the 2, the middle school and the elementary school in Winterport. At the same time as that was going on, we were having conversations with the select board up there, and they wanted more coverage than just what we have. So we were able to negotiate, actually just signed it, a contract that basically married the 2 together. And so what's going to happen is we identified one of our individuals that applied for the position to be the school resource officer. The school pays that individual salary for 2/3 of the year, and basically while he's in school, and then for the 3 months of summer, Winterport has picked up that individual's salary, and he's going to shift from school's assignment to basically working traffic and do targeting things for Winterport specifically. So although Waldo County hasn't utilized this type of a contract with municipalities, it is a pretty common thing in other places. An example of that would be Penobscot County. They've got a lot of, they probably have more contract deputies up there than they actually do road patrol deputies. And so just as an example, from what we've pulled together on those, so when you start looking at the cost of a contract deputy, and I can read these copies and you can make copies and give them to the board members if you want. So when you start looking at base salaries for a patrol deputy, you're looking at somewhere, depending on, the county has traditionally allowed someone, if they come in from outside, we honor the number of years of service they have somewhere. But if you're just given a base salary, you're looking at somewhere around 67,000. You add in health insurance cost, workers' comp, retirement, life insurance. We, through our contract, the deputies have an association, not association, they have a union, the FOP. So as part of that contract, they get educational stipends, uniform allowances. We've calculated costs for cruisers. We charge for mileage and estimate what we expect a patrol deputy would use for mileage and charge 67 cents a mile for that. We have lines for technology and training. So the grand total to a municipality to get a deputy, 40 hours a week is about 131,000. And the one thing that I talked with Lately about the other day, as we were talking about ordinances, a lot of municipalities have reached out to us over the years that I've been with the sheriff's office asking about the enforcement of ordinances. And I know a lot of towns struggle with it because a lot of towns don't have law enforcement to do that. The state law allows for the sheriff's office to contract with the municipality to do ordinance enforcement. As I told Lately in our conversation, there's just absolutely no way that with my existing staffing levels that I could possibly do that. Because if I did it for one town, I'd have to agree to do it for 25 other ones. And that would just be unmanageable. But if a municipality said, we want to have a contract, I think that is something that certainly we have negotiated into that, that I think would be responsible for if there was an ordinance that required some type of enforcement. The other thing that I would say is that it's not uncommon for multiple municipalities to get together and do something and then share that as well. We had a conversation I had with Mike, I got a call from Bayside Association, and they struggled trying to find some coverage there. And so you might have a situation with Bayside Authority, Northport, and then Lincolnville would be interested in something like that. So there's several ways of cutting that piece of pie up if there's that kind of interest as well.
Thank you for that. And just to be abundantly clear, this would, if this is something we were to start a conversation with and pursue, you would be hiring essentially a new individual into the sheriff's department to fill this role. It's not as though you're taking from your resources.
So by contract, what we would do is we would offer that position out internally to any of our
Okay.
existing staff, like we did with the SRO and the position we created in Winterport. We
Yep.
put it out internally. We had a candidate that met the eligibility requirements. He took that position, so now we have to basically hire somebody to backfill him.
Okay.
And do regular patrol.
Yep.
So it could be somebody new if nobody internally wanted it, or it could be somebody from the existing staff who would be requested.
Okay, great. And would you be willing to share sort of a generic version of that contract with us, just so we can eyeball it?
I'll give you a copy. I'll send a copy down to Dave with the one we just did with Winterport. That's the only one that we have. We don't have one strictly with the municipality.
Okay.
Strictly patrol duties, but it'll still have some similar elements.
Okay. And in the 3 minutes before 6:30 or 2 minutes, do we have more questions for
Yeah, I guess.
our sheriff?
Yes, Jason, you mentioned that it's fairly common to have contracts with, like you're doing with Winterport, schools, SRO, and municipalities sharing that. You said, is that a pretty common package, as it were?
I don't know how many there are across the state where specific schools and municipalities sharing some,
Okay,
but there are a number of them that are like multiple
yeah, yeah,
municipalities.
okay, okay, it's curious, thanks.
Any other questions right now?
No.
David, you look thoughtful. No?
I'm good.
Gentlemen, we thank you very much for your time, and, we'll share this data that you presented, and I'll pass this along so everyone on the board has a chance to see it as well, and I'm sure this
Any
is,
follow-up questions, let us know, and one or both of us will be happy to come back.
thank you very much.
Great.
Okay,
Good luck.
great, appreciate it, thank you. Thank you, have a great evening. And amazingly, we
Just like that, wow.
have wrapped up that conversation to smoothly segue into conversation and a public hearing regarding consideration of extension of the major non-residential development project moratorium ordinance. And as such, I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing for
I'll give you a motion.
said conversation.
Well, I move to open a public hearing concerning the possible extension of the major non-residential development project moratorium ordinance.
So moved and well seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And the public hearing is now open, so anyone who wishes to get up and speak is welcome to do so at this time.
Susan Silverio, I'm just curious, are you going to make a presentation about why an extension is needed?
Yeah, we'll cover that just to, for the record, to establish the work that has been done, the evidence that we have, but we want to give the public an opportunity to weigh in, if they would like to. But yes, we will have that conversation. Seeing no additional public wishing to get up and speak at this time, I will entertain a motion.
I move to close the public hearing concerning the possible extension of the major non-residential development project moratorium ordinance.
So moved,
I'll second that.
seconded, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And, as evidence that reasonable progress has been made to alleviate the problem since the ordinance was adopted, the select board has prepared a charge for the land use committee. The land use committee, per our town charter, is the committee that writes, rewrites, and/or amends the land use ordinance in collaboration with the planning board, has found an appointed individuals to serve on the land use committee, prepared a request for qualifications for an outside consultant to assist the land use committee in its work, entered into an agreement with the Mid-Coast Council of Governments for facilitation of services. The Land Use Committee has met multiple times with the facilitator, recently with the Planning Board, to provide information and gather input, and a public forum is happening 18th.
Tentatively scheduled for the
Yes.
18th.
Tentatively. While progress is being made, the work of the Land Use Committee as set forth in the charge is not complete, but is being worked on. Therefore, we feel it is imperative and important to continue these efforts and therefore perpetuate the moratorium ordinance. And as such, can I have a motion, please?
I move the select board find that the problems giving rise to the need for the moratorium still exist and reasonable progress is being made to alleviate the problems. All the provisions of the Town of Lincolnville major non-residential development project moratorium ordinance are hereby extended for an additional 180 days.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And we have Jonathan Powers here to speak with us and give us our quarterly EMS update, performance review, et cetera, et cetera.
Apologize, it's been longer than a quarter.
That's
make this happen.
We didn't say which quarter.
Which one, right? Which year? It also appears that the reports have not been going out. I apologize for that as well. I got David's email or voicemail this morning.
Thank you.
He sent me on Friday. Thanks. I apologize for paper. I apologize for not getting this to you sooner. Should have gone out. We are in the process of switching our email provider. For that, one of the many reasons.
Are those
Hopefully we'll alleviate that problem.
They sure
Yes, anybody would like
can
to.
be.
Absolutely.
And, you know, for the record, we generally don't accept materials at the time of the meeting.
And a gun.
I wasn't gonna argue with the sheriff. But, because, for the very reason that, you know, the board needs time to digest the information and the public also is interested, and so, yeah. But here we are.
I do apologize. So I'll make sure to follow up with you the next time I send the notes by phone to make sure they've actually gone out. I actually heard from Samantha as well that she hadn't received it for a while. I hope so. Of course, I rarely hear from her too, so I appreciate you.
We appreciate you coming in tonight.
So for those of you who haven't met, I don't know me, my name is Jonathan Powers. I am the Division Chief for Northeast Mobile Health Services, the ambulance service that currently serves the town of Camden, Rockport, Lincolnville, and Hope. We have had a very busy year. Our numbers have, our emergency numbers have continued to rise, particularly in Hope. It was very strange to see. The beginning of the year started off very slow for them, and has definitely tripled their call volume as of the last month. Lincolnville has stayed about the same as far as their call volume goes. The acuity seems to be increasing, however, so we're seeing more serious calls. Our response times have been holding strong, and our staffing has been holding strong. I'm very happy to report that our staff has been probably the highest since I've taken over as the division chief, which has now been going in my 5th year. We still are in need of a few paramedics. I would not turn any paramedics down, but our staffing might change in how we increase or attract advanced licensed providers, such as advanced EMTs or paramedics. It's going to be a slow process, but we have started to invest more in our staff than we have or has in the past. Instead of trying to just hire an advanced EMT or hire a paramedic, I've taken in turn to trust our paying for education and encouraging our current staff, our tenured staff, to increase their license level. That has had a number of problems over the years where once somebody gets a new license, they go off and find a new job. But we've been very fortunate in the folks that we've selected to advance in their license level that have stayed for the most part. We have licensed 5 new advanced EMTs this year, and we have 3 more in class right now, who by the end of the year will hopefully be advanced EMTs, leaving me with about 2 emergency medical technicians. The rest of them will be advanced EMTs and paramedics. Very strange change in how we've staffed in the past. It's been a 50-50 mix between the basic life support and the advanced life support, but now we are very heavy for the advanced life support, which is very nice feeling, actually. A little hard on the budget as far as that goes, because advanced providers do earn a little bit more money, rightfully so, but I think it's been really good for the providers themselves, because we're splitting the workload a little bit more fairly, and you're also providing a higher level of service. So instead of our trucks arriving with a paramedic and EMT, more often than not, you're seeing an advanced and paramedic that provide a higher level of care. Excuse me. We're also able to spread out our paramedics a little bit thinner. We've been moving a little bit closer towards having a paramedic fly car and 2 advanced EMTs on shift, which would allow a little more flexibility for lower acuity calls being handled by advanced EMTs
and then the paramedic remaining in the area or in town for the more critical calls. It also allows for a third set of hands on the truly critical calls, where you need more staff, particularly out in the rural areas. So, just saying, we're hoping we'll have 3 more EMTs come first quarter of next year. But we are right now fairly well staffed. The schedule has probably looked the best in quite a few years. A few other updates. We're finishing up some renovations to our station to try and make it a little more pleasant for our staff. So while everybody's rumors are that we're pulling out, we're actually investing in our infrastructure, improving our station. If nothing else, to get rid of that sterile white color I've been staring at for the last few years. Adding a little bit of color, making it a little warmer for folks to be around. The next project will be a kitchen. Those who haven't been in our base, we haven't had much of a kitchen. And after COVID, a lot of our restaurant choices either got 3 times more expensive or went away. So staff has kind of struggled with their cuisine for the last few years, and we're hoping to be able to improve that for them very soon. First was to try and increase the size of the living space. Remove some walls to encourage more interaction between each other. It's a very closed off area, very small rooms. And staff just, 2 over here, 2 over here, 1 over here. Now we have 1 big room for the dolls, just it's their rooms. But they're in the same room, so we're getting a little more camaraderie there. Other updates, one of the nice little headaches that we didn't experience this year because we contracted somebody is we did lose an ambulance for a good number of months due to a blown engine, and another ambulance to a blown rear end. 2 major mechanical failures that did not thankfully happen while they were on a call. One happened while they were backing into the station, and the other just started making noise, so we sent it away for to be checked out by our fleet department down in Saco, and they sent it to the dealership, and they said, you've got to blow it. So we're very fortunate that we caught those early. Our preventative maintenance program has actually allowed our trucks a lot more miles, which is very nice, which is really nice right now because we are still experiencing some of the problems from COVID of getting new ambulances. We've had 5 ambulances on order now for about 3 years. The first 2 were supposed to be here November. Now they've been pushed to April of 25. And then my ambulance, which was supposed to be here in April, has been pushed to either July or August of next year. So one of our trucks is starting to show its age. We've backlined it for now. But it's still reliable, just not as pleasant to work out of for the staff. And it'll be a good backline truck. The 2 ambulances that went out for that work have come back to service. There's no interruption in service. We did bring 2 ambulances up on our soccer division backfill while those were out for that period of time. So there's no loss of coverage during that time. And again, one of those headaches as a select board you have to deal with because you have a contractor for that. And like I said, there's no interruption in service, so we just went on with our daily operations. Too much more as far as updates go. Mostly our biggest things have been staffing, education, our performance metrics, which we'll have an opportunity to take a look at. One of the things that our staff has, we can certainly take some pride in is some improvements in our response times. I know for those who are really attending the performance committee, that not much changed, 30, 40 seconds here and there each quarter. But we actually have seen a significant decrease in our 90th and 95th percentile response times, to where for most of our communities, those times are actually below the contract average. So now you're seeing that 90-95% of our calls are under by 2 to 4 minutes what the average
says that our quality hasn't improved, it has significantly improved. We're at an all-time low for our mutual aid. This last quarter, we did request mutual aid 5 times, none to the town of Lincolnville or Hope. There's 4 Camden and 1 Rockport. But we can also say that our mutual aid that we provided has helped. So we're, since taking over, we've seen a shift in the amount that we're calling other agencies to cover our area and how much we're now providing to our neighbors. We'll be happy to continue doing that. Town of Lakeville, there was only 3 calls that required review because they were outside of the 95th percentile under the performance measures in the contract. We're required to review any of the 90th and 90th, anything above the 90th percentile. Only 3 that stood out. We did have some significant delays. The first one you can see was a 39-minute response time. The bulk of that, I think, is data, is how they entered into the system and how they entered their times, because it ended up being a scene safety issue, so it was a while before they actually had patient contact, so they were staging away. Normally, the way that we would document those times is when they arrived at the staging area is when they were on scene. In this case, I think they documented the time that they arrived at the residence. A lot of times for scene safety, we may stage a quarter mile away or somewhere where it's safe until the deputies arrive. So that one was primarily a scene safety issue. The next one was an accident. That was at 27 minutes. It was zone 3, which is the far end of the coverage area. And this one happened to be in the farthest point away from everything. I run up into that neck of the woods, and it's just the bottom of the Sears Lawn area. And then the last one was just a lower acuity. As you can see, it's an omega level response between traffic and distance. So it delayed that response for that one. So we continued our work as far as around safety, reducing the amount that we use lights and sirens. I did actually receive my first complaint over about siren use. It was at 3 o'clock in the morning from the Mullen Road area. Thankfully, the ambulance I was responding was at the other end of town, so I don't know who it was. Plus the type of call they were going to and the crew that was on, I'm almost certain they weren't using lights and sirens. When I went back and looked at the logs, they were the ones that were doing it, but it was my first complaint about lights and sirens use since taking over.
So John, yeah, like refresh me, I think last time you told me you started a policy, Northeast started a policy not to use, or to minimize. The use of light sirens. Okay.
And we saw a slight increase in our response times as expected. The only time we don't use lights and sirens is for omega and alpha level calls. So remember, reminder under emergency medical dispatch, those are calls where no priority symptoms have been identified or no concerns for life threat. Now, that some folks might argue that because in that it includes falls, a lot of falls are labeled an alpha level call, as long as they don't have priority symptoms. That doesn't mean you don't have a broken hip, unfortunately. There's no way to kind of tease those out of this system, because at the same time, while it might be uncomfortable, there are no life threats. Remembering that an ambulance is 60% more likely to get into an accident using lights and sirens and not make it to the scene than it is to just not use lights and sirens. So for the safety of the crew and the public and any patients, we do minimize the amount that we use lights and sirens. We only saw a slight increase in the response times for those types of calls.
I'm curious, of the mutual aid that you provided, over half is to for transfer from the Islesboro ambulance to your ambulance for transfer or transport elsewhere. Have you been in communication with them and the MDOT regarding their berthing plans for the new ferry?
We're not. I have not heard it. Usually Fred's pretty good about reaching out to me, the director over there, if he has any concerns.
Okay.
Last time we spoke, I think was when they were going through their staff
Okay. All right,
Fred's usually on top of that, and
yeah, I think we're gonna be chatting with them about that, because it just seems like MDOT's policies around emergency transports are changing.
we're also very active in the econ. I don't know if it's made it to municipal level yet. I know there's been a number of meetings in Knox County regarding a emergency-specific area, which I know is still in its infancy, but we do have a number of grants to purchase a boat, to stock it, to equip it, and Northeast has been very involved at the level of me with rec, as far as staffing and training and that kind of stuff. So we're hoping to see something come to fruition in 25, 26 area, maybe a high-speed ferry. There's a group that saw these ferries in Norway, the Norwegian area, and said we can bring this to Maine and start servicing all these islands. And it's been discussions from Swans Island all the way up. So more than just the lobster, just in the mid-coast region. It's getting the MDI, and around Cranberry Isle, those types of areas.
Yeah, but that right there is the rub, isn't it? Because it's one boat serving a lot of islands.
A lot of islands do a very, I'll say, low call volume, but
But logistically, how do we get?
Logistically.
Yeah.
the idea, hopefully with a high-speed ferry, is to be able to service that a lot better than vinyl hitting on a boat for an hour and 15 minutes each way, or an hour and 50 each way, or Martinicus, who sees a boat once a week.
I see, yeah, no, I get it, yeah.
Yeah, and being able to help out those services. Now, the flights are still going to be an option for a lot of these islands too. Islesboro doesn't use air transit nearly as much as vinyl and Martinicus, but except for the crossing is a whole lot faster.
I see.
We do a lot of their transports just to get their ambulance back into service. So they come across, we literally say, hey guys, what do you got? Patient on our stretcher, they go back.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, Robin.
I'm just curious, because I don't understand what it means when it's Lincolnville 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Sure, so each town is broken into a number of zones. The zones serve a couple of different purposes. One is to tease out response times that might be skewed based on our location. So the Route 1 corridor, those response times are really fast. We can get, just shoot down Route 1, you'd be in the beach in a matter of minutes. However, if you go up to the northern end of nowhere, the other side of 52,
I know, I live in nowhere.
fantastic part of town. I'm not saying I would.
No, I do like it there.
There are those
Just
risks.
for the record,
that it's
yeah.
gonna take a little longer to get an ambulance. It's better to tease those times out, so it's not skewing the data, saying, oh, well, we're going to all of Lincolnville in 8 minutes, when it takes 22 minutes to get to that end of town. We can do a couple of different things with that information. One, we need to look at, is there faster ways we can respond to more critical calls in those areas? What is the number of critical calls in those areas? Plus, we can also tease out better or more appropriate mutual aid responses. So prior to breaking this out, my predecessors were just basically calling Rockland for everything. And Rockland to the north end of 52 is a long road. So not only was it a burden on Rockland, it made a whole lot more sense to start Belfast, who is half the distance. So by breaking into 4 zones, we were able to better utilize our mutual aid. So this area being zone 1 gets Union as the next mutual aid availability. They just shoot up across Hope, and here they are. Zone 3, 50 North 52, and then the duck trap area, who's closer to the Belfast line, gets Belfast, and then zone 2 gets Rockland, who can, mostly because those patients also go back to Penn. Whereas these 2 zones go to Belfast, it makes more sense to start controlled from the Belfast area. So we use a lot of data to break the town into different zones for that purpose.
Other questions for Don?
I got a question. but-
I do too.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, we've got this rather illuminating, it's not relevant to the quarterly data, but it is relevant to this illuminating letter that was shared with us from the Rockport town manager notifying everyone, I guess, that they are out of their contractual requirements as of April, and not asking you to speak on that, but just wondering when Northeast Mobile Health Services might be able to have a conversation with Lincolnville regarding those budget implications for the town's remaining in contract regarding service.
We have talked about this for a couple of years.
Yep.
This has been a looming thing for a couple of years. We've made adjustments to our budgeting to take that into account. As you know, we went through a fairly large increase last year, not only for the loss of the transfer volume, which we have seen a decrease in our transfer volume, but to also look at this issue and prepare in the event that this should happen. Now, there are a couple of hurdles they still have to go through, and we are committed to continue our contracts with the towns and reduce or not reduce, but minimize the amount that subsidies may be affected. But we are committed to staying in the area, we're committed to the towns, continue to cover the towns, no matter what the future may hold. And those discussions can be had at a time. Robert and I are pretty much prepared. We have plans in place. As I mentioned in one of the updates, we began looking in other markets to continue to increase our transfer volume, whether that be we just do more out of our TOGAS contract, we do more out of other contracts that we have available to us. The transfer volumes have really not decreased a lot. There's a lot of demand out there to move patients from point A to point B. Services are getting scarcer at our regional or our local hospitals. They're either just going away or they're being combined into other hospitals to better utilize those resources. Because the hospital budgets are also shrinking, or becoming more difficult. So to move patients from point A to point B, that has not increased. This is still the same number of people doing the same number of transfers, and the transfers are increasing. So we may not be doing as many out of Penn Bay as we once were, but we're still seeing more out of our hospital and Waterfall and those other areas. So we're hoping we can minimize the impact of it. We've been planning for it. We incorporated a lot of that into this last year.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we're here. Like I said, we still have a few hurdles. I don't know if the email that David shared with you in response to that, they still have a few steps they need to go through to become licensed. So we don't know where it's going to go. It's out of our hands, but we'll continue to support Rockport and the other towns as we can.
No, that was my question.
Okay.
Second question for you, because would you and or Rick be willing to come back to this board as budget season, and our budget season starts kicking off, and talk about just that issue?
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
As right now, we just said we have the annual increase built into the contract. I think our last contract was only an annual or 2 year. Our last one was a 3 year.
3.
So we just signed that this last year. So
Yeah, I understand that 3-year period is coming up for a while, but with this wrench thrown in, April date, it'd be kind of nice to have that.
we don't anticipate any increases. We went through that last big one. That was actually pretty uncomfortable for us too. But we never want to come back and keep doing that. So I think you're going to see we're going to try and keep that plateau and minimize it.
Thank you.
Appreciated. If there aren't any other questions for Jonathan, I think we can turn you loose, and we appreciate you taking the time to come in and speak with us.
anytime, and if there's any concerns, I'm always available. I was been hit and miss lately just because of other family obligations, but if you have any questions or concerns, you can always email me, call me, dial 911.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we have Meg here, Rasmussen from the Midcoast Council of Governments here to talk to us about the Community Resilience Partnership. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you so much for your time. I am the resilience planner at MCOG, and talking about the Community Resilience Partnership, and really is about getting Lincolnville funding for you and what you'd like to do to increase the resilience in your community in the face of ever-increasing severe weather. So what I was going to do is sort of talk about Midcoast Council of Governments and what we do, so you know where we're coming from, introduce the partnership, and review the enrollment process and how we can assist in that process. So, does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay. So, Midcoast Council of Governments, we are the regional planning and economic development agency serving this region. We provide services to cities and towns in a 3-county area, from Saginaw to including this area and other towns in Waldo County. We're one of 11 COGs set up in Maine through the State Municipal Planning Assistance Program. So we offer resources on topics like affordable housing and transportation, climate resilience, and economic development. We serve the elected officials, staff, and committee volunteers of the towns. We promote cooperative regional efforts by preparing and maintaining a comprehensive regional plan, and we coordinate with state and federal planning, grant, and development programs. And this Community Resilience Partnership is one of those programs. So the interesting question here is, what could Lincolnville do with $75,000 to make a stronger community when dealing with the risks associated with more intense storms like causing flooding, storm surge, higher tides, temperature extremes, and power outages. So, so what is the program? Well, it's pretty simple. It's the way the state is providing guidance and funding for towns to take action to be more resilient in line with Maine's Climate Action Plan. Grants are between $75,000 and $5,000 and $75,000. There's no match for the grants as long as you're picking from a list of specific actions. The benefits are, these no match grants can be used for short-term cost savings. They can be used for longer-term planning because we know that proactive planning is less costly than reacting in a crisis. So, good to plan. But first you have to enroll. And so to be eligible for that kind of funding, there's a little process that communities go through, and it usually takes around, 6 to 8 months. It depends on how fast you guys want to go. You're people who are doing kind of the legwork on that. The enrollment process is 7 steps. And the first step is to designate a working group. That can be an existing committee. It can be staff. Sometimes the select board does it, so there are options for that. The community completes a self-evaluation form. It's about 7 pages. It's, it is gathering information on things that the town has already done to kind of give a snapshot of your resilience actions to date. You review a list of eligible community actions and check off what's been done and prioritize activity that's the town wants to pursue. There's a community engagement process. It's really important. The main requirement is that there is a community meeting held to discuss the self-evaluation and what the priorities would be, get feedback and input on And then the select board needs to adopt a municipal climate resolution, and we have samples of that, saying that you've completed the steps and you commit to participating in the partnership. And then you choose one or more examples, actions to implement. So for example, actions that towns can take are installing heat pumps or other energy efficiency measures in town buildings, save some money, lower your greenhouse gas emissions. You can conduct an analysis of future risks, kind of looking in more detail about what specific risks might be in the future. You know, big storms, forest fires, droughts, you know, things like that, and how to prepare for them. You can adopt low-impact design standards for stormwater management, because I know a lot of, you know, streams and rivers and, you know, are causing flooding in our roadways. So there's really a variety of things that you can choose from. It just depends on what's most important to you guys. So MCOG can assist you by being what's called a service provider. And we could do two things. One is that we can help guide and facilitate your enrollment process. We can support the group. You know, we have some hands-on time when other people might not. We can give ideas and, you know, tell you what other towns are doing, you know, to sort of, you know, sort of open the window on the process to what other towns have been successful doing. And then we will write the grant for your first community action grant. We'll write the application for that. And we haven't been turned down yet, so do that pretty well. We apply for a grant in order to cover our time, and it's about 110 hours. There's a $1,500 match, and that can be met with in-kind volunteer hours, you know, at the IRS rate. So we've never had any issues getting that. So that kind of gives you the overview on how to join and how we can help you join and what you might be able to get out of it. So if you decide to pursue this, the deadline is looming. The application is due on the 8th. So we would just need a letter of support from the town by the end of the week, if possible, but by Wednesday, a week from Wednesday, the latest. So that's it in a nutshell. Happy to take questions.
So you need, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You need a letter of support by the 8th. The 6th, pretty darn soon. You need a letter of support.
Yeah.
And then we have 6 to 8 months to do all this.
Yeah, well, but we're gonna submit the application for the funding. You know, they're pretty quick on turning it around, but it probably will be a couple of months. So I would look towards, you know, the beginning of 2025 to start it.
To start the process.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, I guess we would start the process with the $1,500 in kind match.
Yeah.
Is that when that clock would start ticking, I guess, for that 15?
No, you know, they really, you have to start that when the grant, after we've signed the contract for the grant.
Okay.
But we'll tell you how to get started. You know, if you guys are anxious to get started, you know, you can take a look at the self-evaluation forms, you know, see who you need to talk to.
Yeah.
We'll get your committee going, you know, if you want to get started a little bit earlier. We just can't really build very much time to it until we're.
Sure, okay.
I wasn't really clear, you said there was a 7-step enrollment, and then it seemed like it kind of died as far as you being, it was clear to me what the different steps were. I wrote down the committee and then the self-eval form, and then everything just got very.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so the first step is to establish a working group or assign a committee. Complete the community resilience self-evaluation form. Take a look at the list of community actions and see which ones you've already done, and kind of decide which ones you would like to do would be most kind of applicable here. You hold a public meeting or a workshop to discuss the results of the self-evaluation and the identified priorities to get feedback and input from people in the town. You adopt a municipal climate resolution. And then choose one or more community actions to implement. And then we do the grant application. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Thanks.
Do you happen to have a copy of a letter of support?
I can email one.
Okay.
It can be from the town, signed by the town administrator, as long as you passed a motion.
Okay.
to do it.
And the letter of support is just a letter of support. It's not already starting on committee finding working groups.
That's correct.
That's what we do after.
Yes, it's just saying that you guys would like to have MCOG, you support our application for funding to help guys involved.
And that has to happen by the 8th, and then,
It has that's
or, well,
for all.
like, you know, yes, you said a week from Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
ASAP.
But then we do have sort of space to kind of figure out
Yes, absolutely.
the seven steps that encompass the sort of 6 to 8 month process.
Yes, and we'll help with that. Like, we'll start with a kickoff meeting where we'll, the first step really would be to decide what working group or committee is kind of gonna own it. And then we'll come in and do a kickoff meeting, outlining the process. We'll give you a schedule, so everybody knows what's gonna happen when, and then kind of provide guidance and some hands-on when you need it, to just go through the steps. And that's the 6 to 8 month process. You don't have to do anything before we get started.
And so you said the various structures have looked like forming a new committee or incorporating an additional charge for an existing committee or select boards have taken this on?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Can you speak to the time commitment that you've seen in other communities from like town staff perspective, as well as you talked about the in-kind rate and what other communities, this committee that works on this, how many hours are they typically committing to this process?
It usually, committees are usually meeting once a month. And so the time in the meeting, there's usually like 1 or 2 people who are really kind of on fire about it. And so, I would say it would be a lot if it was 5 hours a week for a committee. But that would be a lot.
As far as commitment from town staff?
What we encourage is that somebody from the committee is coordinating very periodically, come to the select board meetings and, give an update, talk to, Dave, if there's any questions. But the idea is that it doesn't take up town administrative time or staff time. That's usually, it does not, they don't really need to get involved, except we need to let them know what everybody's doing.
Did I see a hand up? Okay. Everyone on the board okay with opening it up? Okay. Yeah, Leslie, would you care to come up to the podium?
I just have a question, actually.
Yep. That way all the folks at home can hear. All of them.
I'm chair of the environmental committee for the Development Watershed Association. And my question is, I'm sitting there trying to figure out how would a group like us help the town? We're doing the same thing basically. Looking at resilience for the watershed, what can we do, and it's fine. we are in it, because we have to be. We learned a lot from what happened to the ocean community. So what I'm wondering is how can we be helpful so that they're not feeling like they're alone in this process, because they're really not.
Yeah, well, you know, coordinating with outside groups is, can, be really helpful. I think when we've seen that work is when there's, any of the, like, the vulnerability assessments that need to get done. The enrollment process, you know, is pretty well, you know, just taking a look at actions that have been done, and then, you know, identifying the risks. So community meetings, or if there's a representative, I can't invite, you know, on behalf of the town, but a lot of times communities will want to hear what other people have already done, so you're not duplicating or reinventing the wheel, right? But then, like in Saginaw, towns that are working with the land trusts together to do natural resource planning. And so when you go to do a grant, the funding is to the municipality only. But there are other funds that other people can bring into that really strengthens your application. And also just, you know, that kind of coordination with other work that others are doing will likely strengthen a community action plan.
Thanks for asking the question. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Susan.
Hi.
It's so interesting to hear what you're bringing forward, and I just thought that for background, I would mention Susan Silverio. For the last 3 years, I've been chairing the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee. For the last 2 years, we've had a heart and soul process, which we've now entered into the final stage. Last Monday, we presented our action plan to the select board, and now it's out for vetting. And so many of the action items that have been identified that align with the values that the select board has resolved to uphold are now already in your list. Things we've thought about and talked about, and we have 491 people have participated in town and to give their input in surveys, interviews, meetings. We've documented hundreds of hours of volunteer time. And so I think it might just be worthwhile to go through just a few items that jumped out at me. Were to implement strategies to increase public transit ridership, alternative transportation, including bike and walking infrastructure. Adopt a complete streets policy which addresses safety, bike pedestrian uses and transit. We also have a real interest in local food here, adopt policies that enable, support or incentivize local food production and consumption, including community gardens. We have someone who's starting that at a school right now. Set targets for increasing green space. This is a real concern down at the beach where the DOT is putting in a parking lot. You know, obviously we can't do all of these things, but I just want to say so many of these things have already been identified and documented by multiple people in our town. So it's already part of our action plan. The next part of our community heart and soul process is to create a stewardship team. So in the process of this, we have found many people who are willing, who are fired up about all these action items and who are willing to work.
You know, that's great, and if I can just, you know, sort of speak to that, if there's a lot of, you know, work that's already been done, like, this process is not to, you know, duplicate that process like it hasn't been done before. And the cool thing about this is that, you know, once the enrollment is done, I mean, the goal is to get stuff done, like to do projects. They want plans and projects, so this could be used as a way to implement some of those other things if there's been community support for it.
David, did you want to ask a question?
Dave Perkins from High Street. I just wanted to strongly support the selectmen signing the letter. If you sit through any talks on what climate change, how it's going to affect our town, it creates a lot of anxiety for everybody. So any resource that we get, such as this one that's being offered, I hope we take advantage of it. I know the board's very sensitive to more tasks, more committees, that can be worked out. But to be in the loop, I love the idea about any type of funding, and that's my question to you. What type of funding have you seen committees get? But the reason I got up and came down here tonight is I really hope you'll support this.
Yeah, so the funding is $75,000. Have you seen the list of actions? Okay, it has to be on that list unless you can go off the list, you just need to do a match. So,
Okay.
it's pretty broad, what the funding can be used for. But also, kind of what comes out of this a lot of the time, communities will do their first one and then, they'll do the next one to the main infrastructure adaptation fund, or they'll do it, to coastal communities or other state programs or federal programs. So it kind of opens the door a little bit to getting funding for those things.
Excellent. Anyone else in the audience with questions or comments?
Yeah, I do have.
Yep, come on up to the podium, please.
Yeah, I just have a question about, I'm Kathleen.
Sorry, can you just say that into the?
I'm Kathleen. I just have a question about the funding. So the 75,000 or the 5,000, whatever, is that for the planning of, or is it actually for the building of the infrastructure?
It depends. Like, towns have that I've worked with have put solar panels on their municipal property, and it's for installation. It's for designing and installing those panels. There were other actions that are planning. It doesn't cover like culvert replacement, because it doesn't cover things where there's already state funding for. So there was other programs to do that. So if you're looking at, protecting some of your natural resources, you can do some studies on stream habitat, and doing open space plans. I want that, but you can do those sorts of plans and then go to different funding sources to do any implementation you need to. So it's a mix.
Great. Thoughts from the board?
Yeah, the only thing is, am I incorrect in saying that if this town were to work with other towns, that money is doubled?
It is, what's it up to, 150,000.
Okay, and so scenario, we work with North Port, get together through the two towns to do hardening of the beaches. We share a coastline. Do you happen to know if those two areas would have to be contiguous?
Yes, they probably do. The way that the GOPIF, which is the Governor's Office of Innovation Policy in the Future, the way they frame it is that it needs to be one project, with a shared outcome. Like, it can't be like similar projects in two towns.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
But working with St. George and South Thomaston, who are doing climate action planning together, and doing some citizen science together, they still are, maintain their separate committees, but it's a chance to at least start that.
Right, neighboring towns working on the same plan
Yeah.
might qualify.
Yeah.
Other thoughts from the board?
I'm generally in support of moving forward with this. I'm wary of additional commitments, et cetera, but this seems fairly minimal. One of our of our previous priorities discussions, we talked about the need to start finding ways to take advantage of funding that's out there, and it's something we're lacking right now, and this doesn't fix our ability to do that, but it's a toe in the water to move us towards being able to take advantage of that. And I think part of our priorities could be identifying the right committee to work on this.
Yeah, and to jump off of that, I mean, it seems like we don't have to figure it all out tonight. But if we indicate that we're interested in participating, this seems like a really excellent topic of conversation to include in our priorities workshop, to sort of weigh out what has been on our rather extensive list and how it matches up against the things that we don't need to match, but also it's compelling that if we do need to have a match, there's opportunity there even still. So, yeah, I like the idea that we could sort of make a good plan around it and see how we can, I guess, take advantage of a good opportunity.
Yes, I see it as very complementary to the fact that we're in our comp plan update and heart and soul, and I was very excited to see it in our packet. I'd love to work on it if that is a possibility.
You may be the committee.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
How do we make sure we don't find out about these things this late? This seems very late.
Yeah,
for
that
us
was
to be
my
learning of it.
question.
And so what was the impetus that we learned about it now? And why didn't we learn about this 2 months ago, 3 months ago, when this program first came about?
Well, actually, I can speak to that.
Well, since we're a member of MCOG,
There is that,
we're
but
a
at
member
the same
too.
time, Steve, Meg came to the Conservation Commission almost a year ago.
2 years ago.
Okay, 2 years ago, sorry. And, and talking about the same darn thing. Yeah, and for some reason that didn't percolate up to the select board.
And my memory was jogged in reading this, that I remember when we first were introduced to the concept of the Mid-Coast Council of Governments, I mean, we got the entire light spectrum of all the things that the Mid-Coast Council of Governments can do, and I think, some of it stuck and some of it didn't, but I do recall this being one of the things where it's like, so, but thank you for taking the time for coming back and explaining it in detail, just despite it seems like that's sort of par for courses. Late hours and whatnot. So there is language that has been provided to us for the select board to consider. So
I've got no problems with suggested language.
you have no problems,
With this, yeah.
Then go ahead and read it.
but my question is, does it need to be more specific to providing a letter? I guess,
Our motion tonight in particular.
yes.
How about,
I don't think so. I think if you use a motion, it says work with, that's
That
code,
covers the
code for
sentiment.
write a letter, get it to Meg and before the deadline and get it
Okay.
in.
All right. Okay.
So do we have to take this and put, I move, or I make a motion that in front of it?
Yeah, ideally, just,
I
you know,
move
that,
that.
because it's just what, it's really handy when putting the minutes together, because it's like, oh. Ding.
You can say, I move that we authorize, the town.
Link to the
Is that
select
what we
board.
do?
You could
The
say the Lincolnville Select Board, yeah.
Authorizes the town to work with the Mid-Coast Council of Governments to assist in enrolling in the State of Maine's Community Resilience Partnership through a service provider grant enabling Lincolnville to access funding and technical assistance for climate resilience planning, reducing municipal energy costs, and enhancing the town's preparedness for the impacts of climate change.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
I took 4 breaths during that. That was a lot.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And thank you, Meg, for taking the time.
Oh, you're welcome.
And for folks for sticking it out. It's been really nice having company.
And they're gone.
Yep, and they're
That's
gone.
right.
The room empties.
Before we can proceed with agenda item number 11, we first need a motion.
I move that we suspend our meeting as the select board and that we convene as the Board of Assessors.
I second that.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. I believe you will have all seen the note included in your packet from Vern regarding this abatement. Is there any questions for David? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve and sign abatement number 2024-03 for Jessica Bennett in the tax amount of $107.30.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Nope.
Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Having dispatched this item and to continue with our few last remaining agenda items, I need a motion, please.
I move
Go ahead, please.
that we adjourn our meeting as the Board of Assessors and reconvene as the Select Board.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And Mike, do you have an update for us?
I don't.
Steve, do you have an update for us?
I don't.
Robin, do you have you had an
I
update,
did,
but your
but
thunder
it's
was
my
stolen.
thunder, yes.
But would you care to, for the folks who don't have the paperwork at home,
Sure,
would you care to give a brief update?
sure. The Waldo County Budget Committee completed our 2024 meeting schedule for meeting with department heads to go through the 2025 budget and voted to approve a budget, which is now going to be presented at a public hearing on November 5th. I know I said I had all this, and no, I don't have my memory.
November 5th is when people vote. So it's probably-
No, it's November 6th.
Okay.
It's Wednesday the 6th at 6 PM. There's a public hearing in Waldo, I'm sorry, Belfast at Waldo County.
Great.
And we were very happy that the budget is only 7.4% increase,
Which is down
which is
from-
down from like 10.4 as it had initially been. So, and it may go down farther if we're lucky and interest rates come down between now and the end of the year, actually, which is when the interest that goes out to bid by the county for them to have decent cash flow from all of our towns, only submitting to them twice a year, which we all have that issue to one degree or another.
Great, thank you. And I also have no update.
Actually, I did think of something.
Oh,
I did, no, between the last meeting and this meeting, I attended a meeting the Mid-Coast Council of Governments had on public transportation in Waldo County. And work that they and Waldo Cap, Lincoln County Planning Association, some other agency, have been doing. And so there is a study afoot by MCOG on just that possibility, what can be accomplished, and what it might be accomplished, et cetera.
Actually, I do have something else I could say. It's related to the budget, it's the jail. You can see the biggest single increase is from the jail. And our county, as well as Knox and Lincoln Saginaw, have been They've put together a pilot program that they piloted last year, I'm not sure if I shared with the group, where they took the county resources and regionalized into a district. So Lincoln SAG has that big prison that they had built, and that is now more general population because the design of that prison fits with a general population as opposed to people with either drug or mental health issues or violent offenders. The Knox facility was created, they specialize now sections of that to either be women, drug issues, mental health issues, violent offenders, where they have the way it's constructed, you can have more presence with guards and you can do more tailored services, whether it's drug or whatever. Everybody's happier. Overall violence immediately went down by separating out populations by kind of type like this. The 6-month pilot went swimmingly, and now they're working with our state representatives to put legislation in for the next session to ask for us to create a district. This is not something that's been done anywhere in the country, according to our sheriff. So we're really breaking new ground here, and our sheriffs they've been making presentations to other parts of the country about this, what they're doing with this regionalization. That possibly the main hurdle is the fact that it's something brand new, but we are hopeful that it may not reduce our costs, but it will keep them from the steep trajectory that we've been having. Fascinating. And it still would be at least 2026 before it could really be implemented well, thoroughly, assuming it passes the legislature and all.
Fascinating. Thank you. Great. Yeah, that's fascinating stuff. Cool.
Well, I just wanted to thank you lately for getting us information, doing the research on the shooting ranges.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of discouraging information, but it's still.
Yeah.
It's good. Knowledge is good to have sometimes. We do have the treasurer and payroll warrants to approve and sign. And I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve and sign the treasurer's and payroll warrants.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And if there is no other business the board wishes to.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much.